Hi, agents, and welcome to the show. This is Katlyn Eggar, your host, and today we're going to dive into a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look into an agency that's rocking it in the independent world, but they weren't always an independent agent. They started in the captive world, and I can't wait to kind of dial back the timeline for you guys and find out how this agency was built and where they're going in the future. So I know that we're going to walk away from this episode today with a lot of great ideas, and it's always so fun to get a fresh perspective on what other people are doing. So I want to welcome our guest to the show. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Hey, I am great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic in Texas. I'm in Texas today in our Quantum Allen office, working with some new team members, and you're in your office as well. Tell us where you're located.
So my main office, we call it the mothership. It is in Chillicothe, Ohio, a small rural city in kind of south central Ohio.
So what's going on at the mothership today?
It's pretty quiet, actually. It's not too crazy. I've been able to hammer out some work. I like those kind of days, especially before a weekend. So not too much. Weather's beautiful. Yeah.
That's so awesome. And I can't wait to hear more about your agency. So tell us what your agency is called and how long it's been around.
Sure. So I own Gerber Insurance and Financial Services, and I'm a third generation agent. So my grandfather started our agency in 1943. Before Nationwide was ever nationwide, it was Ohio Farm Bureau Insurance. And so he started as an original Farm Bureau agent. And then when Nationwide and Farm Bureau kind of split into what they are now, he was a nationwide agent. And so he was an agent for over 40 years. And my dad was an agent for over 40 years. And I joined him in 2006, and I purchased the agency from him in 2013.
That's so cool. And I bet it probably means a lot to your family, and being able to see that the agency is still around and what you've done with that. How do they feel about it?
So yeah, my dad, I actually had lunch with him today. It's the busier I get, the harder and harder it becomes, but it's definitely a priority for me. And I wish Grandpa could have seen a third generation come in, because back in his day, all he had were granddaughters. So back in that day, it was like a boy's got to take over, and that was just the mentality. And so I think he probably assumed, especially because I have a music degree, I wasn't, he knew that I was in school for music, and it wasn't a career path that I was going toward, and neither of my sisters either. So I wish he could see the perpetuation of the agency and what we've done. And we've grown, I've been able to grow the agency through Ohio. And but my dad's really proud. My mom and dad both are. I think mostly because, when I rebranded a couple of years ago, our slogan is "Here for Good." And not just because we've been here for 80 years, but we're here for the good too, for our clients and the good in our community. And that really is a lot of what my grandpa and my dad's heartbeat was, and still is for my dad, just really investing in the community, being a part of all the good things in the community, kind of giving back, community that chooses to do business with us. We have a responsibility to give back to that community as well too. So he's proud. He's just as any proud daddy would be, he is.
As a parent, that's such a cool opportunity that we have to create something long lasting, and thinking about the success that your grandfather created that's impacting generations that he wasn't even able to see the future effects of it. But all that hard work that he did a long, long time ago is still paying off. And so I don't know, we're going to talk about some of the fun parts of being an agency owner today. But there's some parts that of being a business owner that just suck and are really hard and are not easy. And you're like in that moment right now, you're, on your commute, driving into the office, and you're just slogging it out. I think that's such a great reminder that what you're creating is something that's going to be meaningful. It's going to help create success for your family, your kids, possibly their kids, and all these clients, the people in the community that we're helping. It really does make a huge difference. And if we can make it through the hard stuff, it'll pay off. It'll be worth it. And I can't imagine how cool it'll feel one day I don't know if my kids will get into insurance or not, but I hope that seeing mom and dad build something new and, create something new will give them the courage to build something new and create something new one day.
Well, and to do something that they love and that they're passionate about too, yeah, not every day is fantastic. It's not rainbows and unicorns over here every day, but I think part of what I was able to see from dad was that he was a hard worker, and so was grandpa, and they loved people. And at the end of the day, they slept really good at night because they were doing the right things for the right reasons and building good things. And I agree, as a parent, it's like, I don't care if my kids get in the insurance industry or not, but it is really cool for them, hopefully for them to, as they, they kind of think I'm cool still. We just, we've talked about this, that maybe not so cool in the next couple of years as they become teenagers, but eventually once they go to college and realize mom does really know what she's talking about, they'll be able to look back and see, yeah, mom worked really hard and she did something that she loved and she was passionate about. So that's my hope too, that they'll be able to build something of their own someday.
And your girls will never wonder whether or not it would be a thing to be a woman in insurance. They're just going to assume that it's normal. So I think that's really neat.
Yeah. So my dad, when I first started with him in 2006, even female producers were not of the norm. Most of the CSRs and the agencies were female, but the owners and the producers were mostly male. And it's just the way it was. And I remember dad, he was tough on me in a good way. I had to turn in weekly production trackers to him. He had to make sure I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I just remember thinking, man, this is hard. And he said, Em, if I just hand you a paycheck every day, you're never going to be able to prove what I know you have to prove to the world. And to be able to be a woman in a older male dominated industry, you're going to have to probably do things a little extra. You're going to have to, maybe learn more. You're going to have to work a little harder. And I'm really grateful for that lesson. And he did it out of love for me because he wanted to see me succeed. And I'm really grateful for that because, yeah, it's, you and I both know, younger females in this industry, even still today, it's definitely changing, I think. But it's, yeah. And I'm grateful for that. But it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot of, it's okay if I have to work a little harder because I was created to do this and I'm okay with that.
That's so great that you were able to just, adapt and, roll with it. So yep. When you finally decided you were going to purchase the agency, this family legacy agency, and you knew that it was going to be your name on the sign and it was becoming yours, what were some of the thoughts that were going through your head? Were you feeling like pressure, that there was something to prove? Or were you thinking I can't wait to, make these changes? What do you remember being top of mind for you at that time?
I think D, all of the above. Here's the crazy thing. I was 7 months pregnant when I bought my dad's agency with my second. So I had an almost 3-year-old and I was 7 months pregnant when I bought the agency from my dad. He stayed on part-time doing just financial services for a couple of years after I purchased the agency. But I remember for some reason, one of my biggest fears that I kept telling him was, Dad, I don't know if I'm going to run the business side of this the way that you do, because my dad was a brilliant businessman. And he said, Em, I promise you'll do fine. You kind of jump into it, surround yourself with a great lawyer, with a great CPA, with people who are really good at what they do, and you'll be just fine. And really the business side of it is where my entrepreneur side has kind of flourished. And so, and the part that I really love too, even though I love sales and insurance. So in the beginning, kind of one of my biggest fears is one of the things that I love the most about it and being a businesswoman. And but I remember being excited to kind of make things my own. There was a little bit, not a little bit, there was a lot of me feeling like I have to prove myself. That's part of my Enneagram 3, but that's also part of really wanting to make my dad and my mom and my grandparents proud and my family name, because in this community, it means character and integrity, and it means, a handshake's your word, and it means, you're good to you're good to your employees, you're good to your clients, and that's a lot of pressure. And so I just remember thinking, am I going to live up to it? Am I going to do okay? But I think as I got in and really started making it my own, I realized I can still do all the good things, but I can make them my own. I can kind of put a flair and a twist on it, and not everything has to be the same. And quite frankly, there's not a lot of things that are the same anymore, just basically with basic transitions of technology and the way agencies are run now. But yeah, I would say all of it, there was fear, there was excitement, I can't wait to kind of do some of these things that I've been wanting to do and try it out, but it's been really good.
And you were a nationwide agent for a long time through that journey. And so you were with a captive carrier that you were very familiar with. I imagine you guys knew like the ins and outs. And I know you were really active with Nationwide. What were some of the panels or advisory boards you were on with that company?
Quite a bit. So over the years, there were different ones. I was on a commercial business advisory board. I was on the NAC, the National Agency Council. I was on the Regional Agency Council. I was on a financial council for financial services for a while. So I kind of transitioned into several different ones. I'm still on an agency council with Nationwide, a very small select group with the president of Nationwide that helped some of the upper leadership as we transitioned from exclusive into independent to kind of help that transition for the previous exclusive agents, because it has not been the easiest of processes as you can possibly imagine. But to transition all of that from an agency level and to help, and Nationwide's been great to help kind of listen to here are our pain points, here are the things that we're struggling with. So I'm still on some councils in that respect, but yeah, so we've had a great long-standing relationship with Nationwide. They were an incredible partner and are still an incredible partner. So I was exclusive from when I bought the agency in 2013 until Nationwide went independent across their entire agency force last year in July.
Wow. So that must have been such a huge change. And I'd love to hear how you guys navigated that. If we can go back to when you first started hearing and finding out that this was going to happen, do you remember what some of your initial concerns were at the time? Like, what were some of the things you were thinking that were like, I'm concerned about this? Do you remember having any worries or fears at first?
So I don't think I had as much fear as my peers were having. And I think that was mostly revolved around the fact that I was so much younger than the majority of the agents that were going to have to go through this transition. And I also love change. So change doesn't scare me. I actually thrive in change. And that's also not always typically the norm. And I didn't exactly. Yeah. I'm like, what new shiny toy do we get to play with now? This is so exciting. And what opportunity with my entrepreneur spirit. I'm like, what does this allow us to do? This is really great. This is exciting. And I think some of the fears were just the unknowns of how much is it going to cost in the independent side compared to what, Nationwide pays for our agency management system now. How much is an agency? Are we going to be able to navigate it? How are my staff going to go through it?
Nitty-gritty.
Yeah, all of it. I've had staff. I had one that my dad hired when I was 1 year old, and she's phenomenal, an account manager. She's still here with us, still phenomenal.
Oh.
How is she going to manage through this? And the others that have been here for so long, where we were really experts at one company. We had a fantastic relationship with Nationwide and all the other Nationwide agents. And now all of a sudden it's like almost like a little internal bomb's gone off and we have to figure out how to pick up the pieces and where to put the pieces. So I think there was a little bit of fear, but for the most part, it was, there was also the respect of how do we deal with this with the IRS, with the transition of, we technically only owned our servicing rights. So by Nationwide, and that's part of helping with the advisory board I was on, how does Nationwide and the third parties that they're, CPA firms, how do we make this so it's not devastating to agents, but also we make sure we're following tax guidelines, because it is going to look like it's an asset that was given to us. And there was a lot involved from the business side, a lot of fear from the staff that you have to make sure, hey, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. It's going to be fine. So that was probably my initial fear. I talked a lot to agents that I respect and that I know are wise. And I was really grateful to be on the boards and the advisory councils to kind of listen and glean some of the wisdom from some of them. And so I would say probably Nationwide started announcing this. We started hearing snippets of it about 4 or so years before, 4 or 5 years before it actually happened. So it was a long process to try and figure it all out, but we're here.
Have you reached the point yet where it's a little refreshing? That's like, whew, we're on the other side of it.
Yeah, I think that came probably not initially for sure. So July, I would say probably by fall of this past year, it was like, whew, we got this. We did it. We're alive. We survived. We have good new carriers that are great partners for us now. You know, my staff, they finally feel like, okay, it's not so overwhelming. We've gotten through most of the trainings. Yeah. So we're definitely there. We're actually selling insurance again, which is fantastic.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's huge. So, so do you think it's harder to be a captive agent or an independent agent?
I don't think either. I think there's pros and cons to both of them. And I'm really, really, really grateful and really lucky to be able to have experienced both sides of it. You know, the pros of the exclusive world are you really can be a master at your products. You really can be a master at your company. The partnership that an exclusive company is able to give you is not one that independents are able to do, from marketing dollars to agency management systems to lists and tools and training and everything in that regard, branding for that matter. But on the independent world, I never have to turn a client away ever again. I have a market basically for anybody who walks in my door, and I can now, my producers are able to go out to clients and say, hey, yeah, I absolutely have a place that we can put you. We'd love to be able to serve you. So it's been, and it's been really neat learning these other companies, finding which companies are easiest to do business with, technology, and finding out kind of how other people, other companies do things. So I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I would say they definitely both have their pros and cons.
I was a captive agency owner for several years, and I was, one of the things that surprised me about the independent world when I first made the change, went independent, was the lack of training and tools, and everyone kind of does their own thing. And that's definitely a gap that we're trying to fill at Quantum, and making sure that people can open up an agency and have training on the different carriers, and how do you use a rater without getting trapped into a transactional conversation, and how do you like roll out a commercial department if you've never had commercial before. And so I think that was one of the pluses as well, was that it was easier to sell commercial on the independent side, because there was
for sure
place the appetite in different places, and it wasn't quite as in the captive world. It did feel a little bit like trying to hit a bullseye if you're going to sell commercial. So
for sure. Well, and I think in the exclusive world too, it's very up and down. You know, if you're with one company, it's like, we love this right now, and then in 2 years they're like, actually no, we don't love that at all, and we don't want this at all. Where in the independent world, the commercial side is a whole lot easier to say. It's almost like different companies, and what we found is, you know, I have a certain company that loves tech. I have a certain company that loves HAB. I have a certain company that, and it's almost like they all have kind of their own niches, where it's not like, oh, we love this right now, but we're going to hate it in a year. And so I think you're right. The commercial side has definitely been a benefit to us. You know, I was really lucky because we have a heavy ag book. And so Nationwide did ag really, really well. So I didn't have much of that, but the commercial we did. And so it's been great kind of finding those niches in those companies.
And being able to crack the code to commercial really does a lot for the cash flow in an independent insurance agency. So being able to have that additional department, you're diversifying your portfolio, and it's just a really smart business move. At the same time, you don't want to spread yourself too thin and be selling like every kind of commercial and having things all over the place, because it can be so complex. But that's something that we've really found has worked well for us on the independent side, being able to dive into that a little bit deeper and diversify in that sense. We had really focused on personal for so many years.
Yeah, commercial, and it's not, like you said, the training is so imperative, because everything is different. You're never going to find an account that's exactly the same. And so making sure that in the independent world that, you know, because every company has different endorsements, and they have different, you know, things that they include or exclude, so it's definitely, that was a big learning curve for us, to go from having to really know when Nationwide, they kind of made us semi-captive there toward the end. I was exclusive. I'm sorry. I was independent on the commercial and farm side for the last year or two, but so we got a little bit of a taste of it, but to go from being an expert in all the endorsements with Nationwide, yes, we can do this, to all of a sudden having to learn 7 new companies and all their endorsements and all the, how they like things done and what their appetite is. It definitely makes a difference with all of the training. And but you're right, the diversification makes a huge difference on the bottom line in an agency.
It absolutely does. And you mentioned you have a team member who's been with you a long time. How many years has she been with the agency?
37 years.
No way.
Yeah, she's working on her 38th. Actually, in December, it'll be 38.
That's so cool.
Yeah, like, so cool. So I was 1 year old when my dad hired her. Amazing. And she is kind of a master at, well, all she ever knew was, she remembered before computers were even a thing in the agencies, where she would pull out, she'll tell stories, she'd pull out a manual and they'd write it on a carbon copy and mail it off to Nationwide. And, for her to be working strictly on Apple products with all these different carriers and 2 different screens and an ear, a monitor on her ear and, or an earphone. And she is the queen of change, but it really is her mentality. It really is her saying, I believe in the company. I believe in the change that you guys are doing. I believe, she really fully does believe, because I tell them all the time, I'm never going to sink this ship. This is my plan A through Z. I don't have an alternative or an ulterior plan. This is it. So any decisions that I make, I just ask that you trust me, that I've researched it enough, that I know what I'm doing. So, and also I didn't choose to go independent. This was forced on me and I'm grateful for it now, but we're here. And she's been the queen of saying, okay, let's do it. Like, let's change. It's going to take me some time, but she's been pretty phenomenal through it.
That's priceless. I feel like that's the kind of thing that I almost want to hear a TED talk on, is how do people navigate that level of change successfully and come out on the other side of it, okay and thriving? Because I feel like I'm bad with technology. There's days I can't get my printer to work.
Right.
And so I can't imagine what it would be like continuing to succeed in the business world, going from before they had computers to where we are today. And I just I admire her for that.
Me too.
I think that's really hard. I don't think it's easy having to be outside your comfort zone all the time. So.
No, and she's done it very gracefully. And she'll say, it's not that every day's been easy transitioning through this, but she's, and we did Kelly's retention program. And I think that's how you and I ended up connecting. But she embraced even that. I mean, that was a 6-month program that I put all the account managers through. And she's like, all right, if this is what we need to do, and this is the script I need to follow, and these are the things I need to do for our clients, we're going to do it. So you're right. Maybe she does need to do a TED Talk.
She should. Yeah, I would listen to it. I would have our team listen to it. Just being able to hear from someone who went through that, because honestly, I've been thinking recently, these Elon Musk videos will show up on my Facebook feed and stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be the old lady that's like, I remember when people didn't live on Mars. Right. It's going to happen to us too. And right. when we're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, technology is going to be so different than it is today. Yeah. And so I hope I'm up for the challenge.
Same.
That's so neat. Well, please give her kudos from the agency intelligence team and from Katlyn Eggar and Quantum, because we just think that's so cool.
I absolutely will. And if I can ever get her to do some sort of interview or on change, I will make sure I shoot that over to you guys.
Oh, I would love that. That's so cool.
She's kind of shy, so it's going to push her out of her comfort zone a little bit. But I think we could all use a little bit of that wisdom of, she said she even remembers something that my dad told her a long time ago. She just told me this the other day. She said when computers were coming, if you go from doing manuals your whole life to having to use a computer, that was huge and very groundbreaking. And my dad was one of the first agents in Nationwide to adopt it and to bring in computers and start using them. And he said, not everybody loves change, but if you can be rooted and bend in the wind like a tree and say, okay, I'm still grounded, I'm still rooted, I'm still believing in the same things, doing the same things, but I've got to be able to bend. I've got to be able to sway. I've got to be able to change. And she said she never forgot that. And that stuck with her all of this time. So
that gives me chills. And just to think of the power that kind of encouragement can have on someone.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
It's a big opportunity. Now, how many locations do you have, Emily?
I have 3 physical locations,
Okay.
and my ag and commercial specialist, he is in another location. So he actually has a small office in his house. We just don't advertise that. So I'm in 4 different counties in Ohio.
Oh my gosh. So not only have you transitioned from captive to independent over the past year, but you've had new agency acquisitions as well. And so you're juggling 3 different locations. Talk to us about how do you do it all? That's a lot.
I do like a glass of wine every once in a
There
while.
you
That's my secret. No, I don't do it all. I have the most incredible people surrounding me, and it gets me emotional talking about it. I have my core leadership team, and really my core team that is just brilliant. They're awesome. They're hard workers. They're good at what they do. They don't have to be micromanaged. And so I have my VP of operations who is incredible. I have our executive assistant, who's an executive assistant under both of us, who just does a phenomenal job. Our agency manager, who manages half the stuff. I probably don't even know what she does because she does so much. But I also have, incredible producers, and I have people like Trudy who have been here forever and are just good at what they do. They can find the answers. And so I don't do it all. But what my team does allow me to do is what I love to do. And that's still sell insurance, commercial and farm insurance. I still absolutely love to do. But I love to grow, and I love to build, and I love developing relationships, and I love being involved in the community. So acquisitions have been a big focus of mine for years, because I recognized that to survive, I had to be bigger, and to be able to afford the technology that I knew we needed and that I wanted. And I didn't want to be status quo. I didn't want to be a status quo agent. And so that it's allowed me to be able to do that. So I juggle a lot, but I have an incredible team. So, I try to hire to my weaknesses. I'm not a detailed person. I am very high vision, I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it. Let's move fast. But I have both of my executive assistant and my agency managers. I'm huge on the Enneagram and DISC profiles.
Okay.
When I hire people. And so both of them are 6s. So they are detailed. They are, analytical. They are everything I am not.
Are they like the SC or CD on the disc?
I don't remember what their DISC is.
I'm more familiar with the DISC. I always forget the Enneagram one. So I got to brush up on that one, but.
So they have a lot of C. They're both
Okay.
they both would be very high C. And so they're incredible. They're really, really incredible. Where my VP of operations is a 2, where he's very much behind the scenes. He serves, he does, he's a workhorse. He can actually see very nitty gritty detail in marketing and things like that, and online, and just, he's kind of a polymath. He's really good at a lot of things. And so just surrounding myself with a lot of great people. My manager in Lima, which is my furthest away office, it's 2.5 hours from Chillicothe. He's involved in the community. He's from the community. He goes to all the community events. So that takes pressure off of me of feeling like I'm constantly traveling, constantly have to go to all the chamber meetings.
Right.
But people don't know me necessarily up there anyways. They may know our agency, and they know Brandon, who's the agency manager, and the people at the agency. So it's just really important. But yeah, we're still giving back to the community. They don't have to see my face. They don't have to know who I am, but it's, they do need to know that someone's there that cares. And so, yeah, I just have really freaking awesome people.
That's so freeing. And you're passing along this opportunity that's been so life-changing to you to other people that can now take advantage of that opportunity and grow it. Do you hire from within the insurance industry? Do you look for people that have experience, or have you had success looking outside of the industry as well?
All of my best hires have no insurance experience. -1, minus my ag and commercial producer, specialist, because he's amazing. And he also came from an exclusive world. So everybody else that I've hired, minus the people that have been with us for multi-generations, they really are their own experts in their own respect, that I don't have to micromanage them. They're really good at their job. They're hard workers. But as far as any newer hires, none of them, other than one, have had experience in the insurance industry.
I can get why agents are often a little trepidatious to bring someone in who's new to the industry because they know there's going to be this long learning curve.
Mhm.
You might be really needing to fill this position, and you might be feeling like, I just really need to get someone in that can start making a difference right away. So can we talk through that a little bit? Because if we can unlock how to train and onboard
Mhm.
talent that doesn't know anything about insurance, it opens up a huge, a whole new world of opportunity for where the agency can go. But that's not easy either. So help us understand how we can do that better.
For sure. So I actually believe that the old insurance agent model is very antiquated. I believe that it's not a really good operating model. At least for me, it's never been. And I look back, and for my dad, it's like hiring a producer and banging your head against the wall because they're like, why aren't they selling? Because mostly, and typically you hire a producer, they work their circle of influence, they get burnt out or they get lazy, and then they move on to the next insurance agency.
And the pipeline on that is so long, and they don't have the commission coming in, they give up.
Yep. And so, another thing about that is there's still cost and time because environment and culture is really important to me, and who we have representing us in the communities that we're in is really important. So that takes time. That takes time from me sitting down with them, or other people training them, or other carriers coming in and training them. That takes still a lot of time and effort and energy. So what I finally decided, instead of me feeling like I have to fill this position now and hiring the wrong person because I have to do it so quick, I just need to breathe for a second. And that's when I started really hiring based on personality. I stopped basing everything on what's your degree and how fast can you type and what's your grammar. And, not that those things aren't important, because they are, but I'm a stickler on, I can teach you a system. I can teach you technology. I can teach you a product. I can find somebody to teach you even if I don't know it. I can't teach you to be kind. I can't teach you to have a hard work ethic. I can't teach you to have good character. I can't teach you to be a team player. Those are all built in your core. And so what usually is the most frustrating, and has been in the past to me, is trying to knock out those things that I'm never going to be able to change in those people. And it's just this constant spinning wheel of producer here, producer not, producer here, producer not. And same thing with account managers. You'll hire an account manager from, they worked in the insurance industry for 15 years. They have these preconceived notions. Well, this is how we did it there. This is how my old boss did it. Well, that's not how we do it here. We do things a lot different and a lot more progressive than a lot of agencies. So I think we kind of got to the point where I'm like, I'd rather have less really good quality people who are, and my VP of operations says it all the time to our staff. We just want our aces in their places. We believe all of our staff are aces. And if they're working in their lanes, if they're working in their places, we don't have to hire as many people because they're all doing an incredible job. So I think I think it was kind of an epiphany of why do I feel like I have to fill this spot right now? Because I'm going to do more damage and it's going to cost me more money over the long haul to just hurry up and hire somebody just because I feel like, you've been in the insurance industry, rather than, so Brandon's a good example. He's my Lima manager and he had no insurance experience. And it took a long time to get him where we wanted him to be, but he's amazing.
Like how long? When you say long, 2 months in the insurance world can feel short or long, depending on.
Well, COVID also hit in the middle of all
so
So for us, really long. Had COVID not hit, I would say I know this sounds like a lot, but a good 4 to 6 months longer than someone who's already been in the insurance industry.
Makes sense.
So, and it does take more time off my plate when I hire a new producer, especially one that's managing a whole location, because we need to make sure that that person really is exactly who and what we need and want them to be at that location. But that's an investment for me. That's an investment for the company that I love and believe in. And so for me, it was no big deal. I would have him in every commercial and farm review that I would do with our large farm and commercial clients. I would have him working things that he wasn't necessarily maybe going to get, but he was going to learn a lot from it because it was just very complicated. Just doing menial tasks, even sitting with account managers, a lot of things that weren't necessarily his job role and job title.
But that rotation is so important for getting the big picture, especially when for our team members, their insurance world can be so small because they might not be listening to the insurance podcast yet, or they might not be going to the panels and the advisory boards, and their insurance world looks completely different from their perspective than that of an agency owner. And so when we're dealing with turnover and trying to figure out like why it's so hard to get this to turn into a career and not just a job, I think a lot of that has to do with exposing them to the great people in the industry, what's going on in the industry, best practices, being able to look at what customer service is doing, claims, these different departments that you may have within your organization, so that they can just start to put together the pieces of the puzzle. Because we've been in insurance so long, it can be easy to forget what it looked like when we into it. And you transitioned from music into insurance, so even though your family had been in it, that was still,
it was definitely my whole past knowledge of insurance was when I was in high school, and in the summer, I had to work for my dad at the agency, and it was like trimming hedges and painting things and filing papers. I'm like, this is horrible. Who in the world would ever want to go in it? I hate this. So that's actually what my thought process was in it too. But you're right. When you come from the outside, you have no idea how really complicated it is, and how you really do need someone who is a professional and is really good at what they do. Mm-hmm.
So what industry was this associate with before they became your agency manager?
He had a history in sales, but a history at a bank, and a history at a cell phone company. So he had in the past,
sales, he had the professional background.
Exactly.
When you think back to the interviews that you had with him, when you're trying to decide if he's the right person to run this new location, with that being such a pivotal role within your agency, do you recall what stood out to you about him that you felt like were those qualities that you knew you were going to depend on, the ones that are harder to train? Like, we can train someone how to sell insurance.
Right.
Tell me what stood out about him.
The number one thing that stood out to me about him was he was hopeful. Everything he talked hopeful. And I know that sounds crazy, but everything he talked about, he was hopeful about. He was hopeful about his future. He was hopeful about his impact on the community. He was hopeful, and he knew that he was a hard worker, but he wasn't where he wanted to be. He wanted to be a part of a company that was growing. He wanted to be part of something that he could grow with the company, maybe even to a different role in the future. And I just remember his hopefulness, and he's very smart. Obviously the communication that we had with him, he hadn't even had a ton of management experience, and he was so hopeful and so kind and really smart and hardworking. So, he had a lot of those qualities that it's like, this is exactly who we need. This is exactly the person that we want. I don't need somebody who's been an agency manager before and like, man, I'm just kind of burnt out and I'm kind of over this. And I don't know that you should really do. We needed somebody who bought our vision, who bought our mission, and said, yep, this is the way that I'm going to run this location. And so he was super hopeful.
That's so cool. And you said that you really like finding out more about your team's personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
So is the Enneagram your favorite personality assessment to use?
Hands down, I'm a little obsessed with it. And I think my leadership team gets super annoyed with how much I send to them. Like, I'll find something on Instagram like 4 a.m. when I can't sleep.
There's so much good Enneagram stuff on Instagram.
There's so much good stuff. And they're like, I had one of them texted a group and said, now I'm going to read your dissertation on all of our Enneagram profiles now that I've woken up, since you've done this since 4 a.m. But it's so fascinating to me. If I get annoyed, or like if I someone does something and I'm like, why are they doing it that way? I truly can go to an Enneagram, any of the Enneagrams, and like, well, this is why I get annoyed with it, because that's my personality, because I want it done like this. I don't want micromanaged. Work is super important to me. Why doesn't someone care as much about their job or their time management as much as I do? Well, it's not their personality. They're probably getting annoyed that I'm missing details, or I'm not as analytical about things. And so for me, it's not this, you hear, oh, it's a personality clash. Well, it's not a clash. It's just we're all different. And if we learn each other better, then we have way less of that. We can understand how to communicate, whether it's via email or in person. We can understand how to do interviews better. We can understand how to do group conversations better. I'm getting ready to hire a virtual assistant, so for my account managers. And there's a lot of questions that a lot of them have. Their personalities are like spinning, like, oh my gosh,
what if
my job? What if this happens? What if? So for me, instead of me being like, suck it up, like, understand this is a decision, it's like, no, they really need to know my why behind this and understand that here's what my whole goal is. And I need you to put this in the trust bucket, and I need you to understand, and here's kind of some whys behind it to settle their heart. I wouldn't need that. Someone told me this is what I'm doing. Okay, great. This is the decision you made, but they kind of need to know that. So I like learning it because I just feel like it builds the team better.
For associates that are high in that C that you were talking about, it's such a huge asset to an independent agency because they're task oriented, they're very analytical, logical. They can handle the whole like multiple carriers and the AMS thing and the details. But they also need that understanding of why are we doing this, because they're thinking about it from different angles. They can be a little bit more skeptical of new decisions at first because they want to understand it. And it's not because they're rebellious or don't want to be on board, but they want to be confident that all the what ifs were thought through.
Absolutely.
And so it can help give them that buy-in so that they can just, once they're bought in, they will just jump in and just get it done. And
absolutely.
Things about that person.
And I think the way you're talking, that high C, that's a lot of my account managers, because they love the repetitive of, like, I know what my schedule is every day. I don't have to work from home at night. I'm not having to be on my email all the time. I like to know the why behind, but as long as I do, Trudy, she's very much that way. The one that's been here for 37 years. Like, nope, I believe what you're saying. I understand the why behind this, and I'm okay with that. So now I'm going to hammer out this work, and I'm going to do the job you've asked me to do, and I do it very analytically and very precisely.
Yes, which we need on the account executive side for sure. Please be precise, please.
Yes, for sure.
That's so funny. So what assessment do you use to figure out? Do you use an assessment to figure out what Enneagram type your team is, or do you just, can you tell once you've worked with them for a while? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I just give them the Enneagram test before I hire anybody. And once I started doing this, obviously I had people on my team that hadn't taken it before. So I just buy the Enneagram test to them, send them the link, they go through it. And when it sends the result back to them, everybody's like, is there a video camera watching me?
Yeah,
like this,
it feels so.
This is so real. Yeah. So I just do the Enneagram test and the disc. I've done the disc with almost all of my staff, and they match almost identical, the Enneagram and the disc. They just go about it a little bit different. Where the Enneagram talks about, you and I can be the same Enneagram number, but we might have different wings, where one might be more outgoing and one might be a little bit quiet or reserved, but we have the same drive. We have the same dedication to our profession. So there's kind of wings where it kind of changes things. So it's all of the staff have taken the Enneagram, and I would say hands down, almost all of them are spot on.
I think it's a great tool. And one of the future episodes I have coming out, so sneak peek, guys, here's a little spoiler alert.
I'm excited.
In a future episode, we're going to hear from the CEO of Still Human. It's an organization in South Africa that does business consulting for all different types of companies across the world, but especially insurance. And they've been watching the changes that technology is having on insurance, and how, oh my gosh, now we can do a home quote with 3 questions and have a bindable rate. Like, what is that? And he really stressed how crucial it will be for us to really grow in our emotional intelligence and our EQ, because we're going to have to be able to bring value to conversations in a way that a computer can't do. And so I still think there's going to be a place where people are still going to want to reach out. They're still going to want professional advice, but we're going to have to up our game a little bit. We're going to have to be able to connect. It might be we might have a shorter amount of time to build that rapport, or it might not be face to face, and these things where I think 20 years from now, the organizations of the future will be using tools like this to become master communicators.
Absolutely.
So,
I love that. I love that.
So I'll share something that we're trying at Quantum for the first time, and it wasn't my idea. So I have to give our education manager, Amanda Mapp, total props for this. She has a master's in organizational behavior, so this was right up her alley. But we're training a new pod of client care team members this month. They started in April. They're in week 4 now. And so we've been training them really in depth on the client save conversation, which could be the client just indicates, like maybe they're adding a teenager to the car policy and they're like, whoa, that's so expensive. And like how you make sure you're saving that client. So it's not always a renewal premium increase, but it could be. And she really added a really cool spin to it where we started training the team how to identify like what color is this client, like she used colors, which is mirrors with the disc. So if they're in a gold or a blue or a green, how would you save that client? So if they're a D and they're unhappy, you're going to be like really to the point, you're going to come prepared, you're going to have your act together. If they are that people oriented, S, for example, she used the color blue for that one, then they want to hear that like you care about their business and you want to be their agent. And
that's fascinating.
Really fascinating.
I love that.
I was like, oh my goodness,
that's really neat.
So helpful because some clients do communicate differently. And so she's been trying to coach us through how to listen to like, how is this person communicating to me so that I can adapt it a little bit, which isn't, that's not easy to get right off of the bat because we're so used to speaking from our temperament and what feels so natural to us. But it does help in situations where clients are dissatisfied or trying to build that relationship or fix a problem or save that relationship. So I'll keep you guys posted on how it's going, but that's something we're hoping to kind of build out a little bit more.
I love that. Almost like an instantaneous personality flexing, like by the person you're talking to on the phone, you can talk in their language. I love that. Absolutely.
And it takes practice, but it's something we can, aspire to and just get stronger in over time. So
sure. Very neat.
Well, it's so cool that you've had success bringing people in from other industries. And I feel like insurance has been so life-changing for me that one of the reasons I'm so passionate about training and education is that we can unlock this career opportunity for other people that don't know it's there. People aren't
absolutely,
they don't know what they're missing out on. So
right. Well, and no one grows up saying, I want to be an insurance agent. It's like, I want to be a circus clown or a veterinarian, but I agree with you. It has been absolutely life-changing for me too. And it's been a great joy. And there's so many people that I think have never considered being in the insurance industry that could really do very well and thrive in any role. It doesn't necessarily have to be an agency principal, but as an account manager, as a producer, and as an educator, or whatever role you're doing, it is life-changing. Yeah.
So what's next for Gerber Poe Financial Services? What's on your horizon for 2021, and what are your sights on right now?
So I have another acquisition I'm doing June 1st. So it's in a same community in Waverly, Ohio that I'm already in, that I did an acquisition in December. So acquisitions take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy, especially from my upper management. A lot of details and a lot of systems and Gantt charts and things that have to happen to get through. So that's the next one. And just growth. We really are focused on new business, green growth. Going independent really, it halted us for a while because the amount of learning curve that my staff had to have. So we really are just focused on growth. We are focused, we have a lot of new marketing fun things that are coming out, and yay. And just really doing what we can for the communities that we're into. So yeah, just expanding, growing, having fun, being a great team. Like I said, we're moving into this new realm of having a virtual assistant for our account managers. So that's very, very changing for them and very great. I just have a new person as a billing specialist. So taking some of that weight off of my account managers so they can, lots of change. Imagine that. just changing things up for them. They love it. They're like, oh, you know, I walk in, I'm like, guess what? I have something to tell you guys. They're like, you're not changing anything, are you? But fun stuff, fun and very good stuff.
It's changed, but you've done such a great job creating a dynamic environment where people aren't coming to work bored and like falling asleep at their desks. I imagine you guys are doing great things together, and I admire that. I think that's such a great example, and it just shows how much opportunity that's out there to be had. And I love seeing the expansion you guys are going through.
And my employees, you know, the way I feel is anytime someone makes me, if I feel seen and I feel known and I feel appreciated, I am way more willing to go above and beyond to do whatever I need to do for that person, whether it's a family member or a friend or a spouse or a child, or it doesn't matter. And it's no different in the realm of the people that we employ or people that we work with, that if they know, listen, you are my aces. I would not be here if it weren't for you guys doing such an incredible job and really kind of loving on them and lavishing. And, you know, not that I have to be a softie and let people walk on me. And that's, you know, I've had to learn that, but also letting them know, you guys are amazing and we can do this and we can have fun. You know, we can make insurance fun. We can make the job that we're doing fun. And so I appreciate your kind words. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I really think that through the work that we're doing now, that one day somebody's 5-year-old is going to put on a cape and say, I want to be an insurance agent one day. So
I'm down.
we're getting there.
That's our new mission together.
Well, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. And it's been so great just hearing about your agency and the awesome things that you're doing. So tell your team hello from Age of Independence. We think you guys are awesome. And I really look forward to chatting with you more again in the future, Emily.
You too. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
All right. You too.